It's on, and it's on in earnest. The Electoral Commission of Jamaica advised the country last week that as of today, any donations or contributions to the political parties must be noted, because it marks the period which is deemed under law to be the official start of the campaign. So while the Prime Minister has not formally announced the date yet, and he still has some time, a few more months, I'm not going to continue with the speculation about when. What we do know is, in all probability, the elections will be before September. Yeah? And there are some legal interpretation. It can go right up until then or after then. Yeah? But already this campaign is being characterized by some new developments. You're all aware that social media platforms are playing a far greater role than we have had in our recent history. But as an old schooler, I think we are seeing something else which is rather interesting and a major talking point. What is that? That is the coming out of retirement of a former Prime Minister, party leader, to rejoin the political fray. That is rather rare. Mr. Patterson, the party leader with a record, the only party leader to have won 3 consecutive general elections. He has that record. No one else does. And for him to come out of retirement fully 19 going 20 years after retiring in 2006, and to re-enter the cut and thrust of politics, it is a decision that baffles me. But there must be a rational explanation for it. Why would PJ not only come out of retirement to do the occasional speech at conference or a special occasion or the funeral of a comrade or national figure? Why would PJ decide that he has to go put on his pads and buckle up to come face hostile bowling as the opening batsman? What would have driven him to come out of retirement after almost 20 years, to open up himself to that kind of hostile bowling? And he has done so in a way that makes him vulnerable to the kinds of criticisms he's getting, because he has gone very, very tribal in his criticism. So he can't now claim some protection as an elder statesman. He can't claim that because he has gone tribal. I listened while I was away to the presentation at the so-called Setting the Record Straight. Yeah? And I was flabbergasted to $890 billion. When George reminded us of the murder figures when he became Prime Minister in 92. Just over 600 murders per year. And by the time he left in 2005, 2006, we were clocking well in excess of 1,200, 1,300 murders. What he had done to the economy, the wider economy. Yeah? Where he had left the roads of Jamaica, potholes, galore. And for Patterson to now return, this is his second return. Many of you may not know. It's not the first time he has had to return to the political battlefield. In 1991, he was forced out of the Michael Manley cabinet over the Shell waiver scandal. Yes, where he had to resign as a minister with responsibility for giving that waiver to Shell. And he was forced to resign. And that became famous, if not infamous, because he declared at the press conference on his resignation, "I shall return." And he did return. That was 1991, and by 92 he had returned as PNP president. I don't know, this time, 2025, having returned, what triggered it? But as someone wrote to me this morning, because I've been getting a whole lot of reactions to George's commentary this morning. This person says, "Don't listen to people who will say George is warm. That's what's on my mind. Was harsh." This lady writes, "It was a harrowing experience for those who lived through it." That's the Patterson years. An object lesson in poverty being the original sin. And then this lady says this. Michael Manley, before he passed, admitted to getting some things wrong, like the economy. Although he opened the doors to hyperinflation by liberalizing the foreign exchange market without the prescription Mr. Seaga urged with his famous 3 money bills. But you have to respect, this lady says, strong nationwide listener. She says, but you have to respect a man, that's Manley, who had the ability to introspect and say, I could have done this or that better. To date, nothing from Mr. Patterson for putting us through hell. And that's a telling point. Manley apologized. He accepted that some of the policies he pursued between 1972 and 1980 were badly implemented, were wrong, and he apologized. This lady reminds me this morning, to date, nothing from Mr. Patterson for putting us through hell and leaving us with a gift that kept giving for 20 years, a debt vortex that deprived us of a standard of life we deserved because it led to disinvestment in nearly every national institution. George may have been harsh, but it's so hurtful to think about that period. And then she said, by being unstatesmanlike, he created a permission structure for George and others to use. Not a smart move, Mr. Patterson. Talking about how many bank accounts you left office with is platform talk. And if you give, you must be able to take. I decided to quote from that because I think this listener is spot on. P.J. Patterson has returned to the political battlefield where he is offloading